me, but thankfully I've brought a guest as well. Hey y'all. Hey. Everybody's so excited to see you. Hey y'all. They're literally too excited to talk.
They're all digested.
I wanted you to come out with me because I can't give you a proper introduction. Everybody knows who you are.
Well, I'd say most of the people in this room.
I should hope so. We're here mostly to talk about the Reading Rainbow stuff that you've been doing, specifically over the past couple of years. I've actually told this story a few times. So when you first launched it, about a year and a half ago, is that right?
It was a year and a half ago, yeah. You were there.
I was there.
You were there with the Engadget, with
the Engadget show, and we spoke, and I had an emotional moment.
Yeah, you did.
And people who know me know that I don't have a lot of emotions, but one of them came out.
Yeah.
And you know, I turned to you and said, you helped me learn how to read. I mean, this is what 30 years ago?
30 years of the brand, yes.
This year.
This summer we celebrated the 30th anniversary of Reading Rainbow. Our first episode aired in June of 1983. Can you believe it? And why that moment is what it is for you. It's why I remember it, because it's been repeated. How many of you were born, consider yourself 80s babies, right? You're my people! Because you all grew up with the show, and it meant something to you. It occupied a space in your lives that you held close to you. It was a part of your formation. I feel like I helped raise you all. And I think some of you have that same feeling too. So we have this relationship. And I don't know what we're gonna do with it, but I think if we can't use it to change the world, then what are we gonna do? I think that your generation specifically has come to have a tremendously important impact on world events as they unfold. And I'm not waiting for you all, I'm inviting you to step up and become socially active, involved in your lives. The technology that we have connects us, but we really do need to roll up our sleeves, y'all, and get our hands dirty metaphorically. Do you feel me? Woo! I think you guys understand what I'm talking about. We're talking about using the power that we have to really change the world. And that's why the Reading Rainbow thing is so important to me, because when PBS took it off the air, sort of pulled it out of the rotation back in 2009, my business partner, Mark Oak, and I, we figured this is an opportunity. It was sad, right? But there was an opportunity. And we didn't believe that automatically going back to the well of television was the right thing. There was a whole generation of kids out there for whom television is just one screen they use in the course of a given day right now. In the 80s, that's where we went. That was the dynamic that we created with you all. We went to television because that's where our kids were hanging out. And Mark and I believed that there was probably going to be a different way. We knew it was digital in some way. And then, just as we had gathered all the rights together and started raising money and building a team, the iPad comes out. And it's like, we know exactly, because our challenge was, Reading Rainbow was about the books, right, and the video. That connecting the literature back to a real world experience, really expanding the world for a kid who was watching, right? And that backstage all access pass that those Reading Rainbow video field trips were all about. So we knew in creating a product, we needed to nail those two elements, the books and the videos. And when the iPad came out, that led us in the direction that we ultimately ended up in, with an iPad app that is a subscription. It's like the Netflix of books and videos for kids. It's a subscription model. We have over 350 books and counting. We had 2 new books, 1 new video every week. And I gotta tell you, Brian, it's the video. I'm incredibly proud of the books that we have in our app. And it's the videos too. And we are gathering new content video field trips with LeVar, just like the original television series, and it's working. What we have proven is that kids will come to the app to read. That's what I'm talking about when I'm saying using technology to change the world. We know kids want to connect to these devices. They're so engaging. That's why we all want to connect with them.
I'm sure you were asked this question a lot, certainly during the launch. You know, is there an age that's too early to give technology to children? And you know, does an app like this encourage them to sit in front of a screen?
What this app does, I believe, is encourages a parent-child interaction, especially at startup. And then we have in the app, every book is a storytelling experience, which means to me that we have a narrator tell the story. And the interactions are always in the service of the flow of the narrative. That's like the reading rainbow style of converting a book in the digital realm for kids. We know they want the bells and whistles, the interactions, and we give them to them. And 9 times out of 10, they'll saturate themselves with them and move on, because the storytelling experience is what takes over. And they want to find out what happens next. So that flow of the narrative as a child experiences is really important to us at Reading Rainbow. So I think ultimately the answer to your question was about appropriateness and what age. It's all about the parent and the child. You know your child better than anybody else. You know what's appropriate for your child, right?
I've got to assume, you know, 30 years ago, you're launching a TV show about reading, you probably received similar criticism of having children sitting in front of the tube.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But that's just a matter of how we grow and learn. We get introduced to new ideas, they tend to push the boundary, we adopt, we adapt, and we move on. That's kind of how we move forward, as humanity. We are very adaptable human beings. We are constantly adapting to our circumstances. That's the genius of us.
Give us a little history. I mean, we've certainly talked about the benefit on a personal level with you of how amazing it is being able to go out there and interact with these people who, 30 years ago first, really learn how to read by watching the show. What was the initial impetus on your end to launch the show? I know that you come from a family of educators.
My mother was an English teacher, and I grew up in a household where reading was expected. It wasn't optional, right? My mother expected us to read, and she also did a lot of reading in front of us, which I think that important kind of modeling that parents really need to engage in. It's one of those things. Sends that signal that reading is part of who we are. It's a part of us. Literature is a part of us, and we are a part of something by partaking in it. Right?
Beyond moving it over to a different medium, to moving it over to the tablet, I'm imagining there had to be some other issues keeping it relevant for kids. What did you run into? Are kids still reading? Do you have to make the reading experience more dynamic than it is on paper?
I don't think so. I mean, the point of these devices is their interactivity. So unless you're going to utilize that capability, why bother creating a medium? So it's clear that the future of the education of children on this planet is connected to technology and how we apply that technology to what they learn, right? So my point of view is, our point of view is through the storytelling experience, we can communicate a wealth of knowledge and information, but more than anything, we can communicate a passion for learning itself. And that's what we're trying to do as a society, is create the most successful, we're training our successors, we're trying to create the most successful generation to follow us. So we have to put in your hands, right, and your children's hands, the kinds of tools that will help you maximize your potential in life. This is a tremendous opportunity. We're right here at the intersection of education and technology. And the moves we make in the next 5 to 10 years are absolutely critical in terms of the future of this nation and how we raise this next generation of Americans.
Have you? I know we've heard a lot about teaching code in classrooms.
Yes, exactly.
Teaching engineering, things like that. Have you been involved in these initiatives at all?
Well, I'm really involved through a couple of different intersection points. One of them, of course, being Star Trek and playing Geordi La Forge. Before a lot of people, I actually am Geordi La Forge. Through the Star Trek universe, there's a real connection to science. I had an amazing conversation with Mr. Geordi was on stage earlier this afternoon about glass and how technology is evolving and what the future of it looks like. And I'm intensely interested in these issues because what I'm interested in is how do we move the culture forward? How do we get what we came here to do?
You said the minute you walked backstage and you saw him with glass on, you had a visceral reaction.
I had a visceral reaction, and it disturbed me. And it was because I was skeptical. I was leery. I was a bit leery. And I really had to check myself out and why that came up in me. And I feel like I'm a person who's very open to technology. And extremely open to technology. I love technology. And to have had that reaction, and as he helped me understand, he pointed it out to me, a person in my position has cameras pointed at him all the time, because my first question to him was, am I being recorded? And it was my natural reaction. I wanted to know, is that thing on? I'd never seen one on somebody's face when I walked into the room, and my reaction really bothered me. Because I felt like if I had that sort of knee-jerk bias, we've got a huge education problem in terms of getting people to adapt to this next generation of technology. If we don't feel comfortable with it, and there's a lot of resistance, it's just going to be harder for us to adapt.
This brings up actually a really, really interesting question. You dropped the mic. Are you done already? We've been talking about these education initiatives in schools. We've been talking about, and we've seen some really great examples of Khan Academy, Code Academy. We've got one laptop per child is coming on here later in the week. Tablets in the classrooms. It seems to me if there's going to be a bottleneck, it's going to be educating teachers themselves.
And they're so willing. They're absolutely willing, and I think that may be true for a certain percentage of the teaching population. But all the teachers that I'm connected to are for the most part, this audience, the age of the people in this room, the mid-30s and their 40s, and so I think that this is a generation that has really readily adopted technology and is really ready to put it to use in powerfully dynamic ways for the good. But you may be right. There will be bottlenecks, and we'll just have to roll up our sleeves and get over it. We'll have to get it done because too much is at stake. We're talking about not just the future of this nation. We're talking about world events as they evolve.
So, as we said before, a year and a half. It's been a year and a half since you launched it, and I read an interesting conversation with you, where it was made clear that all of the promotion done for the app was theirs. The money, it was a startup. You didn't have a ton of money.
Right.
The money went into making the product as good as possible. How was the response?
The response has been amazing. We have 72,000 books a week being read by kids in the app, which is no small thing. And 50,000 videos being watched. And so what that means is that kids are choosing to come to the app to read, as well as play games. And that's, I think, we wanted to prove two things. One, that we wanted to prove that the brand still had relevance. And we wanted to prove that kids could benefit from the use of this technology, that it could be a good thing for them in their lives. And we demonstrated that. The same way we demonstrated that television is not evil in and of itself. You know, it's a tool. It's how you use it. And I like to say that all, sorry, I'm going to take 3. I like to say that all media, all technology, it's all education. The question is, what are you teaching? Right? So ultimately, we all have to be responsible for the production of our own content, is what I'm saying. That in a generation where we are all content providers, what you create as your content really helps define who you are and what your contribution is. It's about more than just announcing where you are and what you're eating, right? It really does help define you. It's the you want to share with the world. Am I right? Mm-hmm. I mean, stop me if I start telling lies, right? So, well, there you go.
Now that you've had a year and a half of real world testing, have you learned any surprising lessons about how kids are engaging with that technology?
Well, I think that it's not surprising that they are, because as I say, we all want tablets in our hands. We all are so engaged with them. That's part of the nature of the power that they are. They're really powerful machines because we want to engage with them. And it's about how we engage and what diets we put ourselves on. You were talking about you're on a juice diet now, and it's changing your life, right? It's changing you, this juice that you're doing. It's a dynamic change that you're committing to, and you're seeing results. So.
And I just want to bring it back. You are the one who mentioned Star Trek first, so I'm going to ask you some questions about Star Trek. One or two before we close. I'm wondering how it changed the way you view technology. I mean, I assume that you were interested prior to being on the show, but I'm wondering if it affected your worldview. I mean, certainly when we're backstage, when we're talking about Google Glass,
right.
You're contextualizing things as Geordi La Forge.
No, as LeVar, but I guess there's a part of me that is Geordi, absolutely. Star Trek, you have to understand, I was a huge fan of the show, the original series, so Star Trek has helped shape my worldview. And I think that's true for a lot of people in this room. Star Trek is really, Gene's vision is one that I certainly bought into, because it was one where I saw myself represented. Seeing Michelle Nichols there is all right. Black people are going to be there. Let's go, right? But you have to understand. I mean, I'm a little older than I think I look, because I grew up in the 60s and 70s. So in the 70s, it was very rare to see black people on television that weren't pimps or hustlers or criminals. I mean, Gene's vision was not just revolutionary for how it advanced our ideas of science and science fiction and technology. And there are certainly a ton of examples as to how that vision has manifested in products that we use everywhere.
They're all over the floor, certainly.
All over the floor out there. So
drop the mic at the end of the show, LeVar.
No, I can't get this right.
Ladies and gentlemen, AV. You're over there. Just in time to wrap things up.
What were we talking about?
Oh, technology. Star Trek.
All of the technology that we have and has been inspired, it walks right alongside with how that vision has inspired social change and brought the culture forward. And that's what I'm talking about. We have the power to really use this technology for amazing support of the continuing evolution of humanity. It is our responsibility to use this responsibly. That's my point of view.
LeVar Burton, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.